Danielle Pletka, against the motion.
Before anything else, let us all agree that democracy is a good in and of itself. It doesn't require a wit as sharp as Winston Churchill's to know that stacked up against dictatorship, mob rule, or even benevolent tyranny, democracy, notwithstanding all of its imperfections, is the best system of government. Let's also accept that democracy means a great deal more than elections, and that when we say democracy, we're really using a shorthand for a system that contemplates representative leadership, rule of law, economic as well as political freedoms, and more. Finally, let's stipulate that while we expect our news to arrive instantaneously, our paychecks to be deposited immediately, and our diets to work miraculously, democracy is indeed a long-term project. I'm pleased to see that Flynt, Shibley, Dimitri have accepted the idea that the system of government most admired in the Middle East is democratic, and that they agree that people do indeed aspire to freedom in that region. And I must say, I agree with the caveat that people do not aspire to freedom that is eclipsed by fear for the future and for their own security and well-being. So we have a moral good that we are all agreed upon in the abstract. What we don't agree about is the strategic imperative or the appropriate role of the United States. We can debate about that a little bit later, but the foundation of that debate should be a proper understanding of the nexus between tyranny and terrorism. How do groups like Al-Qaeda operate? It should be clear by now that in parasitic fashion, these groups feed off of host nations that are weak. They operate with a core group of killers who are committed ideologues and do come from all walks of life. But the real sustenance, that is only part of the story. The real sustenance for Al-Qaeda and other like groups is an environment that tolerates their methods in appreciation of their supposed ideals. For many, it is not necessarily the virgins that await, or the triumphs of the return of the caliphate. Rather, it is the relief from the life in purgatory that constitutes the average lot of the average Arab. That life is about unemployment, real rates of up to 35% and 40%, and young men who, when polled, consistently complain that their existence offers no hope and no opportunity. It is about the fact that the United Nations Development Program estimates that 9% of every business deal in the Middle East goes for bribes. And when students who want to vote step into the streets of Cairo, they risk arrest and torture, like Karim Soleiman, who was sodomized and tortured because he demonstrated in favor of the rule of law. These victims of Middle Eastern oppression are the ones who provide the oxygen that enables Al-Qaeda to operate and that gives resonance to their political messages. And why? If your life and your father's life and your son's life is lived under the yoke to king this or dictator for life that, and you cannot form a new political organization, and you cannot change your system of government, and you cannot begin to help yourself, then you look for other options. And if the only haven in which you can talk about those options is in the mosque, and the only thing the mosque is offering up is Islamic purity, a return to greatness, and the uncorrupted life of the true believer, it shouldn't be a great wonder that such ideas take hold. If you find that argument unpersuasive, let's for a moment look from our opponent's viewpoint. They rightly suggest that in Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Palestine, I could go on, the main opposition parties are Islamist. But why? It's because they have a proven record of delivering on a better life? Is it because somehow they have more charisma than other opponents of the regime? Or is it the fact that the Islamists have successfully used the vast religious networks and cash available to them to promote their own political cause, occupying the only political space that exists in the authoritarian Arab world? There are only two places for breathing room in the current Middle Eastern political construct: the dictator space and the Islamists. Oppression gives the Islamists the popularity to move their agenda and further the environment in which Al-Qaeda is tolerated and worse, and they know it. In extensive writings, including by bin Laden and Zarqawi, and here I really disagree with what Flynt had to say, they rail against democracy because they know it represents a threat to their lifeline. Zarqawi wrote to Ayman Zawahiri, bemoaning the future of their fight in Iraq. "Democracy is coming," he wrote, "and there will be no excuse thereafter." So what is the answer? The answer cannot be that because Hamas and others take advantage of the democratic process, therefore democracy is discredited. We must confront systems that tolerate Islamists and provide ideological safe haven to al-Qaeda. And the way to do that is by ensuring that there are other opposition parties, genuine reformers, who have the power and the money to make their voices heard. Our opponents will argue that the United States has no role to play, that where we interfere we make things worse, and that with our inconsistency we risk destabilizing the region. That is an unacceptable formulation. It is certainly true that the United States is not a fault-free advocate for democracy. I can agree that there are times when the reality of foreign policy demands that we do business with objectionable leaders. But there is no reason to rely on the brutality of dictators, because that brutality at the end only besmirches us. Worse still, there is clear evidence that jihadists flourish where dictators rule. In supporting the PLO, what did we do to rid Gaza and the West Bank of Hamas? In supporting Mubarak, what have we done to rid Egypt of the Muslim Brotherhood? 60 years of rooting for the dictator's stability, as my colleague Liz Cheney will make clear, didn't protect us on 9/11. Our role must be to facilitate and educate, to hold open the door for Democrats like Ayman Noor in Egypt. It should be to use our influence to see laws rescinded that stop the formation of new parties and constrain the grassroots activities of political and economic reformers. It should be to ensure that mosques are not the only place where political parties and reformers can meet. And it should be to ensure that economic reforms go hand in hand with political change. Ultimately, when young men can expect unemployment in a thriving market economy, there will still be a few who are attracted to al-Qaeda, those medical students and those engineers. But the vast mass will not. They will be less attracted to the answers they hear from radical preachers. Or do our opponents here this evening really believe that reform is not possible, that reformers do not exist? No one among us has suggested the only way to prise open the closed doors of the Middle Eastern palaces is with military force. To the contrary, if that is our system, it will fail. The same holds true for al-Qaeda. We cannot kill every Pakistani that tolerates an al-Qaeda operative in his midst. We cannot bomb houses of worship that preach Islamic politics and jihad. We can throw our considerable weight behind the people who do believe that rule of law and democracy, not jihad and bin Laden, offer real hope for the future. We may never do it perfectly, but that is certainly not a reason not to do it at all. Thank you very much.